These individual transformations create ripple effects throughout galactic society. As more Force users abandon the extreme ideologies that had defined them, conflicts that had seemed intractable begin to find resolution. The separatist crisis, which had threatened to tear the Republic apart, dissolves as the underlying grievances are addressed through Force-enhanced mediation rather than military force. On Geonosis, the site of the Clone Wars' first major battle, a remarkable ceremony takes place. Representatives from both Republican and Separatist worlds gather to formally end hostilities, but the event becomes something far more significant when Count Dooku and Master Windu jointly perform a Force ritual that heals the psychic wounds left by the battle. Using techniques developed through the integration of Jedi and Sith knowledge, they channel the lingering trauma and hatred from the battlefield and transform it into a massive surge of healing energy that spreads across the planet. Dead areas that had been contaminated by dark side energy during the conflict suddenly bloom with new life. Former soldiers from both sides, who had been psychologically scarred by their experiences, report sudden relief from nightmares and anxiety. Incredible, breathes Senator Bail Organa, who has come to witness the ceremony. If Force users can accomplish this on a planetary scale, what might be possible for entire star systems, for the galaxy itself? Indeed, as news of these successes spreads, more ambitious projects begin to emerge. On Coruscant, the massive underlevels that have been plagued by poverty and crime for centuries become the focus of a comprehensive, Force-enhanced urban renewal effort. Instead of simply providing economic aid or increased security, teams of diverse Force users work to address the psychological and spiritual roots of social problems. Former Jedi use their skills in empathic connection to help gang members understand the pain they've caused others, while also experiencing genuine compassion for their own difficult circumstances. Ex-Sith apprentices channel their understanding of power dynamics to help oppressed beings find their inner strength and demand justice. Night Sisters contribute their knowledge of spiritual healing to help addicts recover from substance abuse by addressing the emotional wounds that drive their destructive behaviors. The results exceed everyone's expectations. Crime rates plummet not because of increased enforcement, but because the conditions that create criminals are systematically addressed. Economic inequality begins to decrease as Force-enhanced counseling helps beings overcome the psychological barriers that had trapped them in cycles of poverty. But the most remarkable transformation occurs in the realm of interspecies relations. The galaxy has been plagued for millennia by conflicts rooted in species prejudice and cultural misunderstanding. Humans have enslaved Twi'leks. Hutts have exploited numerous other species, and countless wars have been fought over differences that seem insurmountable. The Force techniques developed by the Unified Covenant prove uniquely suited to addressing these ancient wounds. When beings can experience each other's emotions and memories directly through Force connection, the artificial barriers that separate them quickly dissolve. A particularly dramatic example occurs on Ryloth, where centuries of exploitation by various galactic powers had left the Twi'lek population deeply distrustful of outsiders. A delegation of Force users, led by Anakin, and including representatives from What if Anakin was destined to rule both Jedi and Sith? Let's explore the depths of this scenario in the video. The lightsaber ignites with a sound that shouldn't exist. Blue and red energy swirl together in a single blade. Impossible. Anakin Skywalker stands in the ancient chamber, 20 years old, holding a weapon that defies everything the galaxy believes about the Force. Around him, holographic figures kneel, Jedi masters on his left, Sith lords on his right, all bowing to him. "Choose, you must," comes a voice from the shadows. But Anakin's response shatters millennia of tradition. "No, I choose both." The chamber erupts with energy that is neither light nor dark, but something that encompasses everything. This is the moment that changes galactic history forever. Because what if the prophecy was never about destroying the Sith? What if the Chosen One was meant to rule them? But this vision isn't just a dream. It's a memory of the future, a glimpse of what was always meant to be. The Force itself is speaking, revealing the truth that has been hidden for thousands of years. 3 days earlier, Master Jocasta Nu made a discovery that would validate this impossible vision. Deep within the most restricted vaults of the Jedi archives, she found something that changed everything. Ancient holocrons sealed away for millennia, containing a prophecy that the Council had deliberately hidden. The holocron's message was clear and terrifying. In the time of greatest darkness, when the galaxy bleeds and the Force itself cries out in anguish, there shall arise the one who bridges, neither Jedi nor Sith, yet both. This chosen soul shall unite what was divided, rule what was scattered, and bring balance not through destruction, but through dominion over all who wield the Force. The prophecy the Jedi Council knew, the prophecy they had rewritten. The real destiny of Anakin Skywalker wasn't to destroy the Sith, it was to master them, along with the Jedi, along with everything. And on Tatooine, the subject of this hidden prophecy is beginning to understand his true nature. But this vision is unlike the nightmares that usually plague him. In this dream, he stands atop a crystalline spire that reaches toward twin moons hanging in an alien sky. The spire seems to be made of pure Force energy, neither light nor dark, but something that encompasses both. Below him stretches a vast plaza where thousands of figures kneel in reverence. On his left, beings in traditional brown Jedi robes prostrate themselves before him. On his right, figures in black Sith attire mirror their actions. But there are others as well. Force users in colors and styles he has never seen, representing traditions he cannot name. A voice speaks to him in the dream, ancient beyond measure, yet somehow familiar. It seems to come from the Force itself. "You are the bridge, young Skywalker. Your path leads not to the destruction of the Sith, but to their enlightenment. Not to the abandonment of the Jedi, but to their evolution. You will rule not through conquest, but through understanding. The galaxy awaits its true sovereign." In the dream, Anakin feels a power flowing through him unlike anything he has experienced, even in his strongest moments. It is the light side of the Force, yes, but also the dark side, and something else entirely, a gray area that seems to be the source from which both light and dark spring. The sensation is intoxicating, not because it offers unlimited power, but because it offers unlimited understanding. When Anakin tells his mother Shmi about this recurring dream, she places a weathered but gentle hand on his forehead. The years as a slave have aged her, but there is still wisdom in her eyes. "Perhaps the Force is showing you something important, Ani. Your father always said you were special, that you were meant for something greater than this world could contain. Perhaps your destiny is to unite things that have always been separate." Shmi has her own secrets, memories she has never shared with her son. She remembers the night of his conception, when the Force itself seemed to speak to her in her sleep. A voice, vast and infinite, had told her that her child would be the key to healing an ancient wound in the galaxy. She had assumed this meant he would be a great Jedi. But now she wonders if the truth is far more complex. As Anakin's training with Obi-Wan Kenobi progresses over the following months, something remarkable begins to emerge. Unlike other Padawans who struggle to suppress their emotions and maintain perfect serenity, Anakin learns to harness both his passionate feelings and his meditative focus simultaneously. His fellow Padawans watch in amazement during their group training sessions as Anakin demonstrates techniques that seem to violate everything they have been taught. During one memorable sparring match in the temple's training grounds, Anakin faces off against 3 advanced Padawans simultaneously. The exercise is designed to test defensive capabilities, but what happens next leaves everyone stunned. Anakin's lightsaber work flows seamlessly between 7 different combat forms. Sometimes within a single exchange, he uses the aggressive strikes of Ataru when pressed by multiple opponents, the defensive positions of Sorasu when overwhelmed, and the precise blade work of Makashi when facing a single skilled opponent. But more remarkably, he incorporates emotional states that would terrify most Jedi. When one opponent manages to land a glancing blow on his shoulder, instead of maintaining Jedi calm, Anakin allows himself to feel the flash of anger at being struck. But rather than letting this anger control him, he channels it into increased focus and speed, using it as fuel for his techniques while remaining perfectly in control. His movements become faster, more precise, more powerful, yet he never loses the centered awareness that marks a true Jedi. Master Mace Windu, who has been observing the session from the observation deck, turns to Obi-Wan with deep concern written across his features. "Your Padawan's fighting style is unprecedented, Kenobi. There's something about his connection to the Force that doesn't align with anything we understand about proper Jedi techniques." Obi-Wan nods, his own confusion evident. "I've been training him for months now, Master Windu, and I still don't understand how he does it. It's as if he draws power from emotions that would consume other Padawans. But instead of falling to darkness, he seems to find perfect balance in them. When he's angry, he's also completely at peace. When he's passionate, he's also utterly serene." Master Yoda, who has been watching from the shadows, hobbles forward with his Gaimer stick tapping against the polished floor. Different, young Skywalker is. See something in him, I do, that existed not in the Jedi for many centuries. Ancient ways he touches, ways that forgotten we have. The conversation is interrupted when Anakin approaches them. Having finished his sparring session, his fellow Padawans look at him with a mixture of awe and uncertainty, unsure how to process what they have just witnessed. "Masters," Anakin says respectfully, bowing in the traditional manner, "I hope my performance was adequate. I know my techniques are unconventional." Master Windu studies the young man carefully. "Unconventional is one word for it, Padawan Skywalker. Tell me, where did you learn to integrate emotional responses into your combat forms?" Anakin considers the question seriously. "I didn't learn it anywhere, Master. It just feels natural. When I try to suppress my emotions the way we're taught, my connection to the Force becomes weaker. But when I acknowledge my feelings and channel them properly, everything becomes clearer. I can sense my opponent's intentions more accurately, react more quickly, and maintain my center even in chaotic situations. This response clearly troubles Windu further. Emotions are the path to the dark side, Padawan. Passion leads to suffering, and suffering leads to the Sith. This has been proven countless times throughout our history, but Anakin shakes his head respectfully. With respect, Master, I don't think that's entirely accurate. Emotions can lead to the dark side. If they control you, yes. But they can also lead to greater understanding if you learn to work with them instead of against them. My anger can fuel my determination to protect innocence. My passion can deepen my compassion for others. My love can strengthen my commitment to justice. The three masters exchange glances, none quite sure how to respond to this articulation of Force philosophy. It is Yoda who finally speaks, his ancient voice thoughtful. Study these matters further, we must. Much to learn there may be from young Skywalker's approach. But careful we must be, that lead us astray, it does not. That night, Anakin finds himself drawn once again to the deepest levels of the Jedi Temple. Using his growing Force abilities, he bypasses security systems that should be impenetrable to a Padawan, guided by instincts he doesn't fully understand. He descends through levels of the temple that most Jedi never see, past archives containing knowledge from the earliest days of the Order. In a forgotten chamber, lined with crystalline formations that seem to resonate with Force energy, Anakin discovers a collection of ancient texts written in languages that predate the modern Jedi Code. The manuscripts are inscribed on materials he doesn't recognize, some on metal that seems to shift between gold and silver, others on stones that glow with inner light, still others on what appears to be crystallized Force energy itself. As Anakin begins to study these texts, the words seem to rearrange themselves before his eyes, translating automatically as if the Force itself is interpreting for him. The documents speak of the Grey Sovereign, a legendary figure prophesied to arise in the galaxy's darkest hour. According to these ancient writings, this being would possess the ability to wield both light and dark aspects of the Force without corruption, serving as a bridge between opposing philosophies. One particular text, inscribed on a scroll made from some kind of luminescent material, captures his attention completely. It reads, "In the final age of the Republic, when war consumes the stars and the Force cries out in anguish, there shall arise one who embodies all aspects of the cosmic energy, neither bound by Jedi limitations nor corrupted by Sith hatred. This being shall demonstrate that light and dark are merely different expressions of the same fundamental truth. They shall rule not through domination, but through understanding, not through destruction, but through integration. The Grey Sovereign shall unite what has been divided and bring peace through synthesis rather than victory." As Anakin reads these words, he feels a profound resonance within himself. The philosophical concepts described in the text align perfectly with his instinctive understanding of the Force. He has always felt that the rigid divisions between light and dark were artificial, that there was a deeper truth that encompassed both aspects. Over the following weeks, Anakin returns to the hidden chamber whenever he can escape his regular training schedule. He studies text after text, learning about Force traditions that have been forgotten for millennia. He discovers references to the Jedi, the precursors to both Jedi and Sith, who sought balance rather than adherence to one extreme or the other. He reads about techniques that allow Force users to channel emotion without being controlled by it, to access the power of the dark side without succumbing to its corruption. Most importantly, he begins to experiment with these techniques in his private training sessions, late at night, in unused chambers deep within the temple. Anakin practices forms and meditations that haven't been attempted for thousands of years. He learns to draw power from love without possessiveness, from anger without hatred, from passion without selfishness. Each night, his abilities grow stronger and his understanding deepens. The Clone Wars begin with the Battle of Geonosis, and Anakin's unique approach to the Force becomes even more pronounced on the battlefield. Unlike other Jedi who struggle with the moral complexities of warfare, Anakin finds that his balanced approach allows him to be both an effective warrior and a compassionate protector. During the Battle of Christophsis, Anakin demonstrates abilities that leave even veteran clone commanders speechless. When his men are pinned down by overwhelming droid fire, instead of simply deflecting blaster bolts or using traditional Jedi tactics, Anakin channels his protective fury into a Force technique that creates a barrier of energy around the entire squad. The barrier doesn't just stop incoming fire, it seems to absorb the energy and redirect it back at the attackers. Captain Rex, watching from behind cover, turns to Commander Cody with amazement. "I've served with Jedi before, sir, but I've never seen anything like that. It's like he's using the Force in ways that shouldn't be possible." Cody nods, equally impressed. "The General doesn't fight like other Jedi. That's for certain. He gets angry when we're in danger. But instead of making him reckless, it seems to make him more focused. He cares about us in a way that makes him fight harder, not softer." Indeed, Anakin's relationship with his clone troops is unlike that of any other Jedi general. While most Jedi maintain professional distance from their men, Anakin forms genuine emotional bonds with his soldiers. When troopers are wounded, he doesn't just ensure they receive medical attention, he channels Force healing energy through his emotional connection to them, often achieving recoveries that battlefield medics consider miraculous. But it is his encounter with Separatist prisoners that truly showcases his unique philosophy. After capturing a group of Separatist commanders on Ryloth, instead of simply turning them over to Republic intelligence for interrogation, Anakin attempts something unprecedented. Using Force techniques from the ancient texts he's been studying, he creates a mental link that allows him to share emotions and experiences with the prisoners. Rather than reading their minds against their will, he opens his own memories to them, showing them his experiences with the clone troops, his genuine care for innocent civilians, and his deep desire for peace. At the same time, he invites them to share their own motivations and experiences. What emerges is a complex picture of beings on both sides who genuinely believe they are fighting for justice and freedom. One of the captured commanders, a Neimoidian named Loch Durd, finds himself profoundly affected by the experience. I had not realized," he stammers as the Force connection fades. "I believed the Republic to be corrupt, uncaring about beings like us in the Outer Rim. But your memories show me soldiers who truly wish to protect innocent life." Anakin nods compassionately. "And your memories show me beings who have suffered under systems that failed them. We're not so different, are we? We both want security and justice for those we care about. The tragedy is that we've been turned against each other by forces that benefit from our conflict. This approach to dealing with enemies creates ripples throughout the Republic military hierarchy. Some commanders praise Anakin's innovative tactics and the intelligence he gains through empathetic connection rather than harsh interrogation. Others worry that he is too soft, too willing to see good in enemy combatants. The controversy reaches Chancellor Palpatine, who requests a private meeting with the young Jedi Knight. But this conversation will take a very different turn than Palpatine anticipates. In the Chancellor's office, Palpatine begins with his usual grandfatherly demeanor. "Anakin, my boy, I've been hearing remarkable things about your service in the war. Your methods are unique." Anakin studies the older man carefully. Months of studying ancient texts and practicing Force techniques have sharpened his perceptions considerably. He can sense currents of deception and hidden purpose flowing around the Chancellor like dark water. "Chancellor," Anakin says carefully, "I've been developing some new approaches to conflict resolution. Yes, I believe that understanding our enemies is more effective than simply defeating them." Palpatine leans forward with apparent interest. "Understanding, yes. I sense great power in you, Anakin. Power that the Jedi Order may be too rigid to fully appreciate. There are ways to achieve your goals that the Council would never teach you. But instead of the curiosity or temptation Palpatine expects to see, Anakin's expression becomes knowing. "You're talking about the dark side of the Force, aren't you, Chancellor? Or should I call you Darth Sidious?" The transformation in Palpatine is immediate and startling. His kindly facade drops like a mask, replaced by the cruel features of a Sith Lord. Yellow eyes gleam with malevolent intelligence as dark side energy begins to crackle around his fingers. "If you know what I am, boy, then you know I could destroy you where you stand." Palpatine hisses, his voice now carrying the full authority of his Sith persona. But Anakin doesn't ignite his lightsaber or assume a defensive posture. Instead, he remains seated, his posture relaxed but alert. "You could try, Lord Sidious, but I don't think either of us wants that. You see, I've been studying the ancient texts, learning about the true nature of the Force. The Jedi and Sith have been fighting for millennia. But what if there was a better way?" Palpatine pauses, the Sith lightning fading from his fingers. Despite his vast experience in manipulation and political maneuvering, he finds himself genuinely surprised by this turn of events. "What are you proposing, young Skywalker?" Anakin stands and moves to the large window overlooking Coruscant's endless cityscape. "An alliance, but not the kind you've offered to other potential apprentices. I'm not talking about joining the Sith or corrupting me to the dark side. I'm proposing a true partnership between equals. You continue to guide the political transformation of the galaxy, while I work to unite all Force users under a single banner." The audacity of the proposal leaves even Palpatine momentarily speechless. In all his years of scheming, he has never encountered anything like this direct approach. "You would rule over the Jedi?" Palpatine asks, his political instincts beginning to see possibilities in this unexpected development. "And the Sith?" Anakin responds without hesitation. "All Force users would acknowledge a single authority for the first time in galactic history. No more hidden masters manipulating from shadows. No more Jedi bound by codes that prevent them from taking effective action. a unified Force-using population, working together for true galactic peace. Palpatine moves to stand beside Anakin at the window. Below them, the traffic streams of Coruscant flow in endless patterns, millions of beings going about their daily lives, unaware of the conversation that could reshape their future. The rule of two has served the Sith for 1,000 years, Palpatine muses. It ensures that only the strongest survive, that power is concentrated and pure, and it ensures that the Sith are always few in number, always hiding, always limited in what they can accomplish. Anakin counters. What if, instead of two Sith masters plotting in secret, you had hundreds of Force users working openly to create the order and stability you envision? The political implications are staggering, and Palpatine's strategic mind immediately begins calculating advantages and risks. You would need to prove that such unity is possible. The Jedi will not simply accept your authority. Some will resist, certainly, but others will see the wisdom in ending the cycle of conflict that has defined Force users for millennia. And the Sith. Well, many apprentices have died unnecessarily under the rule of two. I offer them a chance to develop their abilities without constantly watching for betrayal from above. As word of Anakin's growing influence and unusual philosophy spreads through the galactic Force-using community, both Jedi and Sith begin to take notice. In the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, Master Windu convenes an emergency session of the Council. Skywalker's power grows daily. Windu reports to the assembled Masters, his voice heavy with concern. But more troubling than his abilities is his philosophy. He speaks of balance in ways that contradict fundamental Jedi teachings. Yesterday, I observed him training younglings in techniques that actively incorporate emotional responses. Master Ki-Adi-Mundi leans forward in his chair. What kind of techniques? Master Windu, he was teaching them to channel protective anger when facing training remotes set to simulate attacks on innocents. Instead of maintaining serene detachment, the younglings were encouraged to feel genuine fury at injustice, then use that fury to fuel their defensive capabilities. The results were disturbingly effective. Master Yoda shifts in his chair, his ancient features thoughtful. Dangerous, this path seems. Lead to the dark side, it could. Yet, sense darkness in young Skywalker. I do not. Something else this is. Something older. Obi-Wan tries to defend his former Padawan. Masters, Anakin has done nothing but serve the Order faithfully. His methods may be unorthodox, but his results speak for themselves. He's saved more civilian lives and achieved more strategic victories than any knight in recent memory. But Kit Fisto expresses the concern that many council members share. That's precisely what worries us, Obi-Wan. Power without proper philosophical restraint leads inevitably to tyranny. We've seen it before with Count Dooku, and with others who thought they knew better than the accumulated wisdom of the Order. Unknown to the Jedi, similar conversations are taking place in hidden Sith strongholds across the galaxy. Count Dooku, having sensed Anakin's growing power and his unusual meeting with Palpatine, contacts his Sith master through encrypted holographic channels. My lord, the boy grows stronger daily, but not in ways we can easily control or predict. Dooku reports from his fortress on Sereno. He speaks to other Force sensitives across the galaxy, gathering followers who share his vision of unity. some of our own apprentices have begun to question whether the traditional Sith path is the only route to power. Palpatine, still intrigued by his conversation with Anakin, responds carefully. "Let him gather his followers, my former apprentice. We shall observe how far his ambitions truly reach before deciding how to respond." But Dooku presses his concerns further. "Master, if Skywalker succeeds in his vision, there will be no place for the traditional Sith. He seeks to rule over us as much as over the Jedi. This threatens everything we have worked toward for decades." Palpatine considers this. Perhaps, Lord Tyrannus, or perhaps it represents an evolution of our methods. The rule of two served its purpose when the Sith were weak and hidden. But if young Skywalker can indeed unite all Force users under single leadership, the advantages could outweigh the risks. Meanwhile, Anakin's influence continues to grow as he travels the galaxy during the Clone Wars. His message of unity and balance resonates with Force sensitives who have felt constrained by traditional Jedi or Sith teachings. On Ryloth, he encounters a young Twi'lek named Aayla Secura, who has been trained in secret by a former Jedi who became disillusioned with the Order's rigid doctrines. You understand, don't you? Anakin says as he watches Aayla demonstrate her abilities in a secluded cave system. Her techniques naturally blend traditional Jedi lightsaber forms with emotional intensity that would alarm most masters. The Force doesn't recognize the artificial divisions we've created between light and dark. Aayla nods enthusiastically, relief evident in her expression. "I've always felt torn between what my teacher told me I should suppress and what felt natural when I touched the Force. Your philosophy makes everything clearer. I can be passionate about justice without losing my center. I can feel anger at injustice without being consumed by hatred." Similar scenes play out across numerous worlds as Anakin's reputation spreads. On Korriban, the ancient Sith homeworld, he manages to convince several Sith acolytes to abandon their masters and join his growing movement. His message to them is equally compelling, but differently focused. "Why serve masters who demand your constant suffering?" he asks. A group of young Sith apprentices who have approached him in secret. "Why accept a philosophy that ensures most of you will die violently before reaching your potential? I offer you a chance to develop your power without constantly watching for betrayal from above." One of the apprentices, a human named Jace Wilsem, speaks for the group. "But without struggle, without the pressure of survival, how can we grow strong?" Anakin smiles. "There will always be struggle, always be challenges to overcome. But the struggle should come from external obstacles, from working to improve the galaxy, not from artificial conflicts with potential allies. Your passion and your power can serve something greater than personal ambition." As months pass, Anakin's following grows to include dozens of Force users from various traditions. Former Jedi, who felt constrained by the Order's emotional restrictions. Ex-Sith apprentices tired of the brutality of the rule of two. Independent Force sensitives, who had never belonged to either major tradition, but felt called to serve something greater than themselves. To accommodate this growing community, Anakin establishes a training ground on Tython, the ancient world where the Force was first studied by sentient beings. The planet seems to respond to their presence, with long-dormant Force-sensitive crystals beginning to glow and ancient ruins showing signs of renewed activity. The training methods Anakin develops for his followers are revolutionary. Rather than the strict emotional control demanded by the Jedi or the passionate embrace of hatred taught by the Sith, Anakin's students learn to acknowledge all emotions while being mastered by none. They practice techniques that channel love into protective fury, anger into focused determination, and passion into compassionate service. A typical training day on Tython begins with meditation that would be familiar to any Jedi, but quickly evolves beyond traditional boundaries. Students are encouraged to feel their emotions fully while maintaining mental clarity and spiritual centeredness. They learn to use their personal attachments as sources of strength rather than weakness, channeling their love for family and friends into greater dedication to protecting all innocent life. Combat training incorporates elements from multiple Force traditions. Students master traditional Jedi lightsaber forms, but also learn Sith techniques for channeling emotion into physical power. More importantly, they develop entirely new fighting styles that blend these approaches seamlessly. A student might use Jedi Form 3 defensive techniques while powered by protective anger, or combine Sith-style Force lightning with Jedi compassion to create stunning attacks that disable rather than kill. But the most remarkable aspect of Anakin's training is the development of Force abilities that seem to transcend traditional light side and dark side categories. Students learn to heal not just through selfless light side energy, but by channeling their passionate love for the injured person. They master Force techniques that can calm hostile minds, not through manipulation, but by sharing genuine empathy and understanding. The philosophical discussions that take place each evening around campfires near the ancient Tython ruins would revolutionize Force philosophy if they were more widely known. Anakin and his students explore concepts that challenge thousands of years of established thinking. The greatest lie ever told about the Force, Anakin explains to a group of new arrivals, is that light and dark are opposites that cannot coexist. In truth, they are complementary aspects of a single phenomenon. Light without any darkness becomes sterile and passive. Darkness without any light becomes destructive and nihilistic. But when properly balanced, they create something more powerful and more beneficial than either aspect alone. These teachings begin to attract attention from both major Force-using organizations. The turning point comes when the Jedi Council decides that Anakin's growing influence represents too great a threat to ignore. Master Windu, convinced that Anakin is leading innocent Force users down a path toward the dark side, assembles a strike team to confront him. The Jedi task force that arrives on Tython consists of Master Windu, Kit Fisto, Ajan Kolar, and Saesee Tiin, along with a support contingent of Jedi Knights. They find Anakin's community engaged in their evening training session, with students practicing forms that blend traditionally opposed techniques. Anakin Skywalker, Master Windu announces, as his team spreads out in a confrontational formation. By the authority of the Jedi Council, you are under arrest for heresy against the Order and corruption of innocent minds. Anakin stands calmly in the center of the ancient stone circle, where he has been instructing his students. Around him, dozens of his followers arrange themselves protectively, but not aggressively. Among them are former Jedi, ex-Sith apprentices, and independent Force users who have found purpose in Anakin's teachings. Master Windu, Anakin replies, his voice carrying a natural authority that surprises the Jedi strike team. I have committed no crimes against the Republic or against innocent beings. I have only shown other Force users a path to understanding the cosmic energy as it truly is, not as narrow dogma would have us believe. Your teachings corrupt the natural order of the Force, Windu responds, his hand moving toward his lightsaber hilt. You encourage students to embrace emotions that inevitably lead to the dark side. We've seen the results of such philosophy before. And yet, Anakin counters, gesturing toward his assembled followers. How many of my students have fallen to the dark side? How many have committed acts of cruelty or selfishness? Look at them, Master Windu. Do you see hatred in their hearts? Do you sense corruption in their intentions? Kit Fisto steps forward, trying to maintain a diplomatic approach. Stand down, Anakin. Come with us willingly, and we can discuss these matters before the full council. There may be a way to address your concerns within the structure of the Order. But Anakin's followers move to protect their teacher, not with weapons drawn, but with calm determination. The air around the ancient ruins begins to hum with Force energy as dozens of trained Force users prepare for potential conflict. I appreciate the offer, Master Fisto, Anakin says, but I cannot abandon those who have found hope in a better way. If the Council wishes to discuss philosophy, they are welcome to come here openly, as equals. But I will not be arrested for the crime of expanding understanding. The confrontation escalates when Agent Kolar, always quick to action, ignites his lightsaber. Enough talk. We have our orders. What follows is unlike any battle in recorded Jedi history. Anakin's followers fight with techniques that confuse and disorient their opponents, rather than seeking to harm them. They use traditional Jedi defensive forms powered by passionate protective instincts, creating an almost impenetrable wall of lightsabers that turn aside every attack while steadily pushing the Jedi strike team back. But it is Anakin himself who demonstrates the true potential of his balanced approach. When Master Windu engages him directly, expecting either traditional Jedi techniques or recognizable dark side powers, he instead faces something entirely unprecedented. Anakin's lightsaber work incorporates 7 different traditional forms within the first 30 seconds of combat. But each form is enhanced by emotional states that would be forbidden to Orthodox Jedi. He uses Form V's aggressive strikes while channeling protective fury for his students. He employs Form 3's defensive postures while powered by loving determination to preserve his community. Most remarkably, he demonstrates Form 7, Varpad, while maintaining perfect spiritual balance. Master Windu, the acknowledged master of Varpad, finds his signature technique turned against him in ways he never imagined possible. Varpad is designed to channel an opponent's dark side energy back against them. But Anakin emanates no darkness to redirect. Instead, there is only balanced Force energy that flows like water around Windu's attacks. The duel is brief, but decisive. Within 5 minutes, Master Windu finds himself disarmed, staring up at Anakin's blue lightsaber blade. But instead of delivering a killing blow or demanding surrender, Anakin deactivates his weapon and extends his hand to help the fallen Jedi Master to his feet. "I don't wish to harm you, Master Windu," Anakin says with genuine compassion. "You are a good man who believes he is protecting the galaxy from dangerous influences. But I cannot allow the old ways to suppress the evolution that the Force itself is calling for." The other Jedi cease their attacks as well, realizing that none of Anakin's followers are attempting to harm them. despite having clear advantages. Kit Fisto, breathing heavily from his own encounter with a former Sith apprentice who had used emotional energy to enhance traditional defensive techniques, looks around at the scene with new understanding. "They're not trying to hurt us," he says to Windu. Even when they had opportunities for killing blows, they held back. News of the failed Jedi raid spreads quickly throughout the galactic Force-using community, and the political ramifications are immediate and far-reaching. Many worlds that have grown tired of the Clone Wars and the political corruption it has revealed begin to see Anakin's movement as a potential alternative to the failing systems of both Republic and Separatist governments. But the raid also prompts an unexpected and dangerous alliance. Count Dooku, now convinced that Anakin poses an existential threat to traditional Sith power structures, approaches the surviving members of the Jedi Council through intermediaries. "We face a common enemy," Dooku tells them in a secret holographic transmission, his aristocratic features grave with concern. Skywalker's vision would see both our orders dissolved in favor of his unified system. For the first time in a millennium, perhaps it is time for ancient enemies to work together to preserve our respective traditions. Master Yoda, deeply troubled by recent events and sensing a great disturbance in the Force, finds himself in the unprecedented position of considering an alliance with the Sith. The philosophical implications are staggering, but the alternatives seem even worse. Desperate times these are. Yoda says to the assembled council members, "Unite we must. If preserve the Force traditions we would. But dangerous this path is. Compromise our principles. We risk, even in attempting to preserve them." Meanwhile, Chancellor Palpatine watches these developments with great interest. His original plan to use the Clone Wars to destroy both Jedi and Republic has been complicated by Anakin's emergence as an independent power, but he begins to see new possibilities. If he can manipulate this three-way conflict properly, he might emerge as the leader of the only stable Force-using organization in the galaxy. The final confrontation takes place on Mortis, the mystical world where the Force exists in its purest form. The ancient planet has been calling to Anakin through the Force for weeks, and he finally answers the summons, bringing his most trusted followers with him. What he finds there will determine the future of Force users throughout the galaxy. Mortis exists partially outside normal space and time, its very atmosphere thick with raw Force energy. Ancient crystalline structures rise from impossible landscapes that shift between beauty and terror. At the heart of the world stands a massive temple that seems to have been waiting for this moment for millennia. As Anakin and his followers explore the temple, they encounter the beings who have been Mortis's guardians since time immemorial: the Father, the Son, and the Daughter. These entities represent the balance between light and dark, the pure dark side and the pure light side of the Force, respectively. "You have come at last," the Father says, his voice carrying the weight of eons. "The one who would unite what we have kept separate, who would heal the wound that has bled for thousands of years." The Son, embodiment of the dark side, studies Anakin with eyes that burn like stars. "You claim you would rule over darkness itself. Many have tried. All have been consumed. What makes you different from the countless would-be conquerors who have sought to master the dark side?" "I don't seek to rule through domination or conquest," Anakin replies respectfully. "I offer partnership, service based on mutual respect and shared purpose. The dark side has wisdom to offer, power that can serve good ends when properly channeled. but it need not be cruel or destructive to be strong. The daughter, Avatar of the Light, nods with apparent approval. Your approach shows wisdom, but wisdom alone will not suffice when your enemies arrive. They come now, united in their fear of change, determined to preserve the old ways, even if those ways have led to endless conflict. As if summoned by her words, ships begin entering Mortis's atmosphere. The combined fleet represents the most unlikely alliance in galactic history. Jedi cruisers flying in formation with Sith destroyers, their crews working together against a common threat. The Jedi contingent is led by Master Yoda himself, accompanied by the surviving council members and hundreds of Jedi Knights. The Sith forces are commanded by Count Dooku, with Chancellor Palpatine arriving aboard his personal flagship. Even more surprising, representatives from other Force traditions have joined the alliance. Night Sisters from Dathomir, Saber rakes from the Tapani sector, and even a delegation of Matukai adepts. As the various factions disembark and array themselves across Mortis's shifting landscape, the magnitude of what is about to occur becomes clear. This will not simply be a battle between opposing armies, but a fundamental conflict over the nature of the Force itself and how it should be understood and utilized by sentient beings. Anakin stands with his followers in the center of the ancient temple complex, facing the assembled representatives of thousands of years of Force tradition. The air itself seems to vibrate with anticipation as power flows between the various groups. Chancellor Palpatine, having revealed his Sith identity for this crucial confrontation, steps forward as the primary spokesman for the Alliance. Skywalker, you have forced our hand. Your vision threatens everything we have worked to preserve and protect. The traditions you would discard have been tested by millennia of experience. Master Yoda, leaning heavily on his Gaimer stick, nods gravely. Agree with the Chancellor, I must. Though pain me it does to stand with a Sith Lord. Dangerous your path is, young Skywalker. Lead to chaos and destruction. It could, no matter how noble your intentions. Count Dooku activates his curved-hilt lightsaber, its red blade casting ominous shadows across the temple stones. The Sith way brings strength through struggle, power through passion. Your philosophy would make us weak, would rob us of the very qualities that allow us to achieve greatness. But Anakin looks at all of them with something that might be pity. You speak of tradition and experience, but what has that tradition accomplished? For 1,000 years, the Jedi and Sith have battled while the galaxy suffers. How many worlds have burned in your conflicts? How many innocent lives have been lost? How many promising young Force users have been turned into weapons instead of healers and protectors? He gestures toward his assembled followers, who represent the diversity he envisions for the future. Look at what we have built in just a few years. Former enemies working together, combining their strengths while overcoming their weaknesses. Jedi learning to channel healthy emotion. Sith learning to serve something greater than themselves. And independent Force users finding community and purpose. The Night Sister clan mother, Talzin, speaks for many in the Alliance when she responds. Pretty words, young one. But the dark side is not so easily tamed. We have seen what happens when beings attempt to master powers beyond their understanding. Corruption is inevitable. Is it? Anakin challenges. He extends his hands, and raw Force energy begins to flow around him. But this energy defies traditional categorization. It is neither the pure light of the Jedi nor the crackling darkness of the Sith, but something that encompasses both while being limited by neither. The assembled Force users step back in amazement as Anakin demonstrates abilities that should be impossible according to everything they have been taught. He channels what appears to be Sith lightning, but instead of causing pain and destruction, the energy heals wounded creatures and brings dead plants back to life. He uses techniques that should require the cold detachment of the Jedi, but powers them with passionate love and protective fury. The Force doesn't recognize your artificial boundaries. Anakin continues, his voice carrying over the mystical winds of Mortis. Light and dark, emotion and serenity, passion and peace. These are all aspects of the same cosmic truth. By forcing beings to choose one extreme or the other, you create internal conflicts that weaken rather than strengthen. The philosophical debate might have continued, but the volatile mix of so many powerful Force users in one location begins to create dangerous resonances in Mortis's unique environment. The planet itself starts to react, with ancient structures beginning to glow and reality becoming increasingly unstable. It is the Father who calls for action rather than further discussion. The time for words has passed. Let the Force itself judge between these competing visions. But know that the outcome here will determine the path of Force users throughout the galaxy for generations to come. What follows is the most complex and significant Force battle in recorded history. It is not simply a matter of lightsaber combat or Force techniques, but a fundamental conflict between different understandings of cosmic truth. The battle begins when several of the more aggressive Sith apprentices, unable to contain their traditional bloodlust, launch themselves at Anakin's followers. But instead of meeting violence with violence, Anakin's people respond with techniques that confuse and disorient rather than harm. They use traditional Sith-style aggression, but channel it into protective rather than destructive purposes. Meanwhile, the Jedi forces advance with their typical disciplined coordination, expecting to face either light side techniques they can counter or dark side powers they can redirect. Instead, they encounter fighting styles that blend both approaches seamlessly, creating combinations they have no experience defending against. Anakin himself moves through the battlefield like a force of nature, not seeking to harm his opponents, but to demonstrate the superiority of his balanced approach. When Count Dooku confronts him with classical Makashi technique, Anakin responds with a fusion of multiple forms enhanced by controlled emotional energy. When Chancellor Palpatine unleashes his most powerful Sith abilities, Anakin matches them with techniques that channel equal passion, but serve constructive rather than destructive ends. The turning point comes when Anakin faces all three primary opponents simultaneously: Palpatine, Dooku, and Master Yoda. In any traditional understanding of Force combat, no single being should be able to stand against such combined power and skill. But Anakin has moved beyond traditional understandings. As the three masters attack from different angles, Anakin doesn't fight against their techniques. He incorporates and transforms them. When Dooku strikes with aristocratic precision, Anakin mirrors the elegance while adding emotional weight that makes each movement more meaningful. When Palpatine attacks with unbridled fury, Anakin matches the intensity but tempers it with compassionate control. When Yoda demonstrates perfect traditional technique, Anakin builds upon it with creative variations that expand its possibilities. The three attackers begin to realize that they are not facing an opponent who seeks to defeat them, but one who seeks to learn from and teach them simultaneously. Each exchange reveals new possibilities, new ways of understanding Force techniques that they had never imagined. As the battle continues, something extraordinary begins to happen. Anakin starts to demonstrate abilities that transcend traditional Force categories entirely. He creates barriers of pure energy that protect combatants from all sides, preventing serious injuries even in the midst of intense conflict. He somehow manages to heal wounded fighters while continuing to duel. Most remarkably, he begins to project empathic understanding between opponents, allowing them to sense each other's motivations and fears. This is impossible. Count Dooku breathes as his lightsaber is gently guided aside by techniques he cannot counter or even fully understand. No single being can wield such power without corruption. Chancellor Palpatine snarls with frustration as his most devastating Force lightning attacks are somehow absorbed and transformed into healing energy. "What are you?" he demands. Master Yoda pauses in his attacks, his ancient eyes wide with something approaching awe. "Show us what the Force could truly be." "You do. United, not divided. Whole, not fractured." It is then that Anakin makes his ultimate demonstration. Instead of continuing to fight his three opponents, he extends his hands toward them and projects a shared vision into their minds. In this Force-induced meditation, they experience his understanding of what the galaxy could become. They see worlds where Force users serve as healers and counselors rather than warriors and rulers. They witness conflicts being resolved through enhanced empathy rather than violence. They observe young Force sensitives being trained not as weapons for competing ideologies, but as guardians of life and promoters of understanding. In the vision, they see Palpatine's political skills being used to genuinely serve the public good rather than personal ambition. They watch Count Dooku pursuing knowledge and power in service of justice rather than personal revenge. They witness the Jedi Order, evolving beyond rigid emotional suppression to embrace the full spectrum of healthy human feeling in service of the greater good. But most importantly, they experience the sense of unity and purpose that comes from Force users working together rather than against each other. For the first time in their lives, they feel what it might be like if the artificial divisions between light and dark, Jedi and Sith, were replaced by cooperation toward shared goals. The vision is so compelling, so emotionally powerful, that even the most hardened opponents find themselves reconsidering their positions. Palpatine, who has spent decades manipulating and betraying others in pursuit of power, experiences what it might feel like to be genuinely respected and valued for his abilities. Count Dooku, bitter from years of disillusionment with Jedi hypocrisy, sees a path that could satisfy his desire for justice without requiring endless conflict. When the shared vision fades, the three masters find themselves standing motionless, their weapons lowered, staring at Anakin with new understanding. "Your vision is seductive, Skywalker," Palpatine admits slowly. "But how can we be certain that you will not become the very tyrant you claim to oppose? Absolute power corrupts absolutely, as the old saying goes." Anakin gestures toward the mystical beings who have been observing from above. "Because I won't hold absolute power. The Father, Son, and Daughter will serve as guides and advisors, ensuring that no single individual makes decisions that affect the entire galaxy. Moreover, every major choice will be made in council with representatives from all Force traditions. No single voice, including mine, will be able to dominate the others. Count Dooku slowly deactivates his lightsaber. And the Sith knowledge, our techniques and traditions? You would preserve them even as you transform their application? Everything will be preserved and studied, Anakin assures him. But the knowledge will be used for construction rather than destruction, for healing rather than harm. Your passion and power will serve to protect the innocent rather than to dominate the weak. Master Yoda takes a deep, shuddering breath as he contemplates this fundamental shift in his understanding of the Force. Afraid I am of change so great, but sense the truth in your words. I do. Failed. The old ways have. Time for something new. It may be. One by one, the combatants across the battlefield begin to lower their weapons as the philosophical transformation spreads from the three primary opponents to their followers. Former enemies look at each other with new understanding, seeing potential allies rather than threats to be eliminated. The Night Sister clan mother approaches Anakin cautiously. Your words carry power, young sovereign. But the dark magics we practice, the traditions of our people, how would they fit in this new order? Every Force tradition has wisdom to offer. Anakin replies respectfully. Your connection to the spiritual realm, your understanding of life and death, your knowledge of Force techniques that others have forgotten. All of this enriches our understanding of the cosmic energy. But perhaps these abilities could be used to heal spiritual wounds rather than to create them. Similar conversations begin taking place throughout the assembled groups as representatives from various Force traditions discuss how their unique knowledge might contribute to this new vision of unity and cooperation. But the resolution is far from immediate, and the path to acceptance proves more complex than anyone anticipates. As the echoes of the great vision fade, some among the assembled forces remain skeptical. A faction of hardline Sith apprentices, led by a Zabrak named Savage Opress, steps forward with weapons still ignited. Pretty words and mystical visions. Savage snarls, his double-bladed lightsaber crackling with dark energy. But the strong will always rule over the weak. That is the way of the Sith. And it will not change, because some farm boy from Tatooine has delusions of grandeur. Similarly, a group of Orthodox Jedi, led by Master Coleman Kakaj, maintains their defensive positions. The dark side corrupts all it touches, Kaj declares. This supposed balance is merely a path to inevitable fall. We have seen it before with Count Dooku, with others who thought they could master darkness. Anakin recognizes that words alone will not suffice for these holdouts. He must demonstrate the practical applications of his philosophy through action. Stepping forward, he addresses both factions directly. You demand proof rather than promises, he says calmly. Very well. Choose your strongest champions, both light and dark. Let them test my methods directly, and judge for yourselves whether balance leads to weakness or strength. Savage Opress volunteers immediately, his hatred and bloodlust palpable in the Force. From the Jedi faction, Master Kaj reluctantly agrees to serve as their representative. What follows is perhaps the most significant demonstration of Force philosophy in galactic history. The duel begins with Savage launching himself at Anakin with pure Sith fury, his every strike intended to maim or kill. His double-bladed weapon whirls in devastating arcs, each attack fueled by years of pain, anger, and the desire to prove Sith superiority. But Anakin doesn't meet this violence with greater violence. Instead, he demonstrates something unprecedented. As Savage's lightsaber descends toward Anakin's head, the Grey Sovereign catches the blade, not with his own weapon, but with his bare hand. The energy should have severed his limb instantly, but somehow the lightsaber blade seems to become solid in his grip, its destructive power temporarily neutralized. "Your anger is real," Anakin says, holding Savage's weapon motionless. "And your pain is genuine. But you're directing them at the wrong targets." With his free hand, Anakin touches Savage's forehead, and suddenly the Zabrak is overwhelmed with Force visions. He sees his own past from a new perspective. The training that broke him, the masters who used his suffering for their own purposes, the cycle of abuse that created his hatred. But he also sees potential futures where his strength serves to protect rather than destroy, where his passion fuels justice rather than revenge. When the vision ends, Savage staggers backward, his weapon falling from nerveless fingers. I had not seen. The masters who trained me, they cared nothing for my growth, only for my usefulness to them. But the demonstration is far from over. Master Kachaj steps forward, his own lightsaber ready. Impressive, but can your methods withstand the disciplined application of proper Jedi technique? The duel that follows showcases the fundamental differences between orthodox Jedi philosophy and Anakin's balanced approach. Kaj fights with perfect technical form, his movements precise and controlled, his emotions carefully suppressed. But Anakin meets each attack with techniques that seem to evolve moment by moment. When Kaja attempts a classic Soresu defensive sequence, Anakin responds with forms that incorporate emotional energy to enhance physical capability. When the Jedi Master tries to use Force persuasion to cloud Anakin's mind, the Grey Sovereign counters with empathic projection that allows Kakaj to feel Anakin's genuine compassion and desire for peace. The climax comes when Kaj, frustrated by his inability to gain advantage, attempts a Force judgment attack designed to overwhelm opponents with the weight of their own guilt and shame. But instead of being crushed by moral pressure, Anakin absorbs the attack and reflects it back, transformed. Kaj finds himself experiencing not condemnation, but understanding and forgiveness for his own doubts and fears. "Your dedication to justice is admirable," Anakin says, as he helps the dazed Jedi Master to his feet. "But justice, tempered with mercy, is more powerful than judgment alone. Your techniques are masterful, but they become even more effective when powered by emotional investment in the outcomes you seek." These demonstrations prove pivotal in swaying the remaining holdouts. One by one, representatives from various Force traditions step forward to pledge their cooperation with the new order. But establishing the practical framework for unity proves far more challenging than achieving philosophical agreement. The negotiations that follow take place over several weeks, with delegations from dozens of Force traditions working to establish the governing principles of what becomes known as the Unified Force Covenant. Each group insists on protections for their particular beliefs and practices, creating a complex web of agreements that must accommodate everyone from pacifist Jedi healers to aggressive Sith warriors to mystical Night Sisters. Chancellor Palpatine, his political experience proving invaluable in these discussions, works tirelessly to craft compromises that satisfy all parties. The challenge, he explains to Anakin during one late-night strategy session, is creating a structure that allows for diversity without descending into chaos. Each tradition must feel their voice is heard and their knowledge respected. Count Dooku contributes his aristocratic understanding of historical precedent, helping to design systems that avoid the failures of previous attempts at Force user unity. The ancient Jedi failed because they tried to suppress both light and dark rather than integrating them. He notes, "We must ensure that our approach acknowledges the validity of all aspects while channeling them constructively." Master Yoda, despite his initial reservations, becomes one of the most valuable contributors to the new framework. His centuries of experience with Jedi governance provide insights into avoiding the bureaucratic paralysis that had begun to afflict the old order. "Learned from our mistakes, we have," Yoda admits during one council session. "Too rigid. The old ways became too separated from the lives of ordinary beings. This new path, challenging it is, but necessary for the Force to remain vital and relevant." The structure that eventually emerges is revolutionary in its approach to Force user organization. Rather than a single hierarchical order, the Unified Force Covenant establishes multiple interconnected councils, each specializing in different aspects of Force study and application. The Council of Guardians, led by reformed Jedi Masters, focuses on protecting innocent life and maintaining peace. The Council of Seekers, incorporating former Sith scholars, dedicates itself to expanding understanding of Force abilities and techniques. The Council of Healers draws on traditions from across the galaxy to develop medical and therapeutic applications of Force energy. The Council of Mediators specializes in conflict resolution and diplomatic intervention. At the center of this structure, Anakin serves as the Grey Sovereign, but his role is more coordinative than authoritative. Major decisions require consensus among the various councils, ensuring that no single perspective dominates policymaking. The practical implementation of this new order begins with the transformation of existing institutions. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant undergoes massive renovation to accommodate representatives from all Force traditions. What had once been austere chambers dedicated to meditation and emotional suppression become vibrant spaces where beings from different cultures share their unique approaches to understanding the cosmic energy. The Great Hall, previously used only for formal Jedi ceremonies, is redesigned as a massive amphitheater where daily discussions take place between practitioners of different traditions. A typical day might feature a morning session where Jedi Masters share defensive techniques with Sith apprentices, followed by an afternoon workshop where Night Sisters teach spirit communication to Matukai adepts. But the most remarkable changes occur in the training programs developed for new students. Traditional age restrictions are eliminated, allowing beings to begin Force training at any stage of life. More importantly, students are no longer required to sever family connections or suppress emotional attachments. Young Luke Skywalker, now 5 years old, serves as one of the first test cases for these new approaches. Unlike his father's traumatic separation from Shmi, Luke grows up surrounded by both his family and his Force training community. His education includes not just lightsaber techniques and meditation practices, but also lessons in empathy, conflict resolution, and the practical application of Force abilities to everyday problems. "Watch, Daddy," Luke says one afternoon demonstrating a technique he's learned from Master Coleman Kaj, who has become one of the most enthusiastic converts to the new methods. The boy extends his hand toward a wilted flower, and gentle force energy flows from him. But this energy is clearly powered by his emotional connection to living things rather than the detached compassion traditionally taught to Jedi younglings. The flower straightens and blooms, its colors becoming more vibrant than they had been even in perfect health. But more remarkably, Luke's technique seems to heal not just the plant, but the soil around it, creating a small oasis of enhanced life. Fascinating, Dooku observes, having become one of Luke's most frequent instructors. The boy naturally integrates what we once considered opposing approaches. His healing draws on both Jedi compassion and Sith passion, creating results neither tradition achieved alone. Padme, watching her son's development with pride mixed with concern, turns to Anakin. Are we certain this is safe? The old ways may have been limiting, but they were also predictable. We know what we're getting with traditional Jedi or Sith training. Anakin takes her hand reassuringly. The old ways were predictable. Yes, predictably inadequate. Look at our galactic history. Centuries of conflict, failed orders, fallen heroes who couldn't maintain the balance they were taught to seek. Luke is learning something better. He's learning to be whole rather than fragmented. Meanwhile, Leia, even at her young age, shows different strengths. Where Luke demonstrates remarkable healing abilities and empathic connection, Leia exhibits unprecedented skills in force-enhanced communication and negotiation. During a minor dispute between two council factions over resource allocation, the 3-year-old wanders into the meeting and somehow projects a sense of compromise and mutual understanding that resolves the issue within minutes. She has the gift of unity, Palpatine observes, watching Leia unconsciously mediate between arguing adults. In time, she may prove even more valuable to galactic peace than her father or brother. The success of these early experiments leads to the establishment of similar training programs throughout the galaxy. On Naboo, former Sith apprentices work with refugee younglings to develop force techniques specifically adapted to healing trauma. On Alderaan, Jedi Masters collaborate with local philosophers to create educational programs that integrate force awareness with traditional academic subjects. But perhaps the most significant development occurs on Tatooine, where Shmi Skywalker, now liberated from slavery and honored as the mother of the Grey Sovereign, establishes a sanctuary for beings recovering from the psychological damage inflicted by the old Force traditions. So many have been broken by systems that demanded they choose between love and duty, between passion and peace. Shmi explains to a gathering of former Jedi and Sith who have come seeking healing. Here, we learn that these are false choices. The Force encompasses all aspects of sentient experience, and wholeness comes from integration, not suppression. The sanctuary becomes a pilgrimage site for Force users throughout the galaxy, many of whom arrive carrying decades of internalized conflict from their previous training. A typical resident might be a former Jedi Padawan who was expelled from the Order for forming emotional attachments, or a Sith apprentice who survived the murder of their master, only to find themselves lost without the structure that hatred provided. The healing process developed at the sanctuary involves techniques that would have been considered impossible under the old systems. Patients learn to embrace their complete emotional range while maintaining spiritual centeredness. They practice lightsaber forms that channel personal pain into protective strength. Most importantly, they experience community and acceptance rather than the isolation that traditional Force training often imposed. One particularly powerful example involves a former Sith Lord named Darth Maladi, who arrives at the sanctuary, broken by decades of practicing techniques that required her to embrace hatred and cruelty. Under the old system, such a being would have been considered irredeemably fallen, suitable only for destruction or imprisonment. But under Shmi's guidance, Maladi begins to explore what her passion and power might accomplish when redirected toward constructive purposes. Her deep understanding of pain allows her to become remarkably effective at helping other trauma victims. Her mastery of Force lightning, once used only for torture and execution, proves adaptable to medical applications that can restart failing hearts and stimulate nerve regeneration. "I spent 30 years learning to hate," Maladi confesses during one group therapy session. "I was taught that suffering was strength, that cruelty was power. But here, I'm discovering that my intensity can serve healing just as well as harm. My passion can fuel compassion instead of destruction." These individual transformations create ripple effects throughout galactic society. As more Force users abandon the extreme ideologies that had defined them, conflicts that had seemed intractable begin to find resolution. The separatist crisis, which had threatened to tear the Republic apart, dissolves as the underlying grievances are addressed through Force-enhanced mediation rather than military force. On Geonosis, the site of the Clone Wars' first major battle, a remarkable ceremony takes place. Representatives from both Republican and Separatist worlds gather to formally end hostilities, but the event becomes something far more significant when Count Dooku and Master Windu jointly perform a Force ritual that heals the psychic wounds left by the battle, using techniques developed through the integration of Jedi and Sith knowledge. They channel the lingering trauma and hatred from the battlefield and transform it into a massive surge of healing energy that spreads across the planet. Dead areas that had been contaminated by dark side energy during the conflict suddenly bloom with new life. Former soldiers from both sides who had been psychologically scarred by their experiences report sudden relief from nightmares and anxiety. "Incredible," breathed Senator Bail Organa, who has come to witness the ceremony. "If Force users can accomplish this on a planetary scale, what might be possible for entire star systems, for the galaxy itself?" Indeed, as news of these successes spreads, more ambitious projects begin to emerge. On Coruscant, the massive underlevels that have been plagued by poverty and crime for centuries become the focus of a comprehensive, Force-enhanced urban renewal effort. Instead of simply providing economic aid or increased security, teams of diverse Force users work to address the psychological and spiritual roots of social problems. Former Jedi use their skills in empathic connection to help gang members understand the pain they've caused others, while also experiencing genuine compassion for their own difficult circumstances. Ex-Sith apprentices channel their understanding of power dynamics to help oppressed beings find their inner strength and demand justice. Night Sisters contribute their knowledge of spiritual healing to help addicts recover from substance abuse by addressing the emotional wounds that drive their destructive behaviors. The results exceed everyone's expectations. Crime rates plummet, not because of increased enforcement, but because the conditions that create criminals are systematically addressed. Economic inequality begins to decrease as Force-enhanced counseling helps beings overcome the psychological barriers that had trapped them in cycles of poverty. But the most remarkable transformation occurs in the realm of interspecies relations. The galaxy has been plagued for millennia by conflicts rooted in species prejudice and cultural misunderstanding. Humans have enslaved Twi'leks. Hutts have exploited numerous other species, and countless wars have been fought over differences that seem insurmountable. The Force techniques developed by the Unified Covenant prove uniquely suited to addressing these ancient wounds. When beings can experience each other's emotions and memories directly through Force connection, the artificial barriers that separate them quickly dissolve. A particularly dramatic example occurs on Ryloth, where centuries of exploitation by various galactic powers had left the Twi'lek population deeply distrustful of outsiders. A delegation of Force users, led by Anakin and including representatives from multiple species, arrives to offer assistance with planetary reconstruction. Initially, the Twi'lek leadership is skeptical. They've heard promises of aid before, usually followed by new forms of exploitation. But when Anakin offers to share his own memories of slavery and oppression, demonstrating genuine understanding of their experiences, attitudes begin to shift. The breakthrough comes when Master Imagundi, a Nikto Jedi, who had previously died defending Ryloth, but whose consciousness has been preserved through new Force techniques, combining Night Sister spiritual knowledge with Jedi wisdom, manifests as a Force spirit to address the Twi'lek assembly. "I gave my life defending your world," Jedi's spirit tells them, "not because duty demanded it, but because I had come to understand your people's worth through Force connection. The bonds we can create transcend species, transcend the physical differences that have been used to justify oppression." The Twi'lek leaders agree to accept aid, but more importantly, they begin training their own Force-sensitive individuals in the new unified techniques. Within months, Ryloth becomes one of the most prosperous and peaceful worlds in its sector, serving as a model for integration and cooperation. Similar successes occur throughout the Outer Rim. Historically, the most lawless and conflict-ridden region of the galaxy. On Tatooine, the new Force users work to eliminate the slavery that had defined the planet's economy for generations. But rather than simply freeing slaves through Force, they use empathic projection to help slave owners understand the humanity of those they've exploited. Watto, Anakin's former owner, becomes an unexpected convert when a Force vision shows him experiencing slavery from his property's perspective. The emotional impact is so profound that he not only frees his remaining slaves, but dedicates his resources to helping other slave owners make similar transitions. "Never did I think to feel what they felt," Watto admits, his usual greed and callousness replaced by genuine remorse. The Force, it shows you truth that your eyes alone cannot see. These individual conversions create a cascade effect that transforms the entire planet's economy. Slavery becomes not just illegal but socially unacceptable, as more beings experience direct empathic connection with former slaves. New economic models emerge based on cooperation rather than exploitation, leading to prosperity levels that Tatooine had never known. The transformation of galactic society accelerates as the new Force techniques spread. Scientific research advances dramatically when Force-enhanced intuition is combined with traditional analytical methods. Medical practice evolves to incorporate Force healing as a standard treatment option. Even fields like engineering and architecture benefit from the expanded awareness that Force training provides. On Kamino, the cloning facilities that had produced the Republic's army are converted into advanced medical research centers. The Kaminoans, with their expertise in genetic manipulation, work with Force healers to develop treatments for previously incurable diseases. Clone troopers, no longer needed as soldiers, find new purposes as healers, teachers, and peacekeepers. Captain Rex, now serving as a coordinator between clone veterans and their new civilian roles, reflects on the change during a visit to Coruscant. We were bred for war, trained to follow orders without question. But this new galaxy gives us choices, gives us the chance to heal instead of harm. It's what we always hoped for, even when we didn't dare admit it. The economic implications of these changes prove as significant as the social ones. The massive military-industrial complex that had profited from centuries of galactic conflict faces the challenge of adapting to a peaceful economy. But rather than simply shutting down these industries, the new order works to redirect their capabilities toward constructive purposes. Shipyards that had built destroyers and fighters begin producing exploration vessels and medical frigates. Weapons manufacturers develop Force-enhanced tools for construction and healing. Even the most hardened war profiteers find themselves drawn into the new paradigm as they experience the satisfaction of creating rather than destroying. Senar Fleet Systems, previously one of the galaxy's largest military contractors, becomes a leader in developing spacecraft, specifically designed to support Force user missions. Their new ships incorporate meditation chambers, healing facilities, and communication systems, optimized for empathic connection across interstellar distances. Profit remains important, admits Wraith Sienna, the company's director. But we've discovered that building hope is ultimately more profitable than manufacturing fear. Our new designs are in demand throughout the galaxy, and the satisfaction of our workforce has never been higher. But the most profound changes occur in the realm of governance and political organization. The Republic Senate, previously paralyzed by corruption and competing interests, undergoes fundamental reform as Force-enhanced communication allows senators to move beyond mere political posturing toward genuine problem-solving. Senator Bail Organa, working closely with Chancellor Palpatine and the Unified Force Covenant, helps design new legislative procedures that incorporate empathic understanding into the decision-making process. Before any major vote, senators participate in Force-mediated sessions where they experience the potential consequences of their choices from multiple perspectives. When you can feel how your decisions affect ordinary beings across the galaxy, Organa explains, it becomes impossible to vote based purely on political advantage. The Force shows you the real-world impact of policy choices in ways that statistics and reports never could. These reformed procedures prove remarkably effective at addressing long-standing galactic problems. Issues like trade route piracy, resource inequality, and environmental degradation that had persisted for centuries begin to find resolution as senators gain direct emotional understanding of their consequences. The transformation extends to the judicial system as well. Traditional adversarial legal proceedings, where advocates argued opposing positions regardless of truth or justice, give way to restorative processes that focus on healing rather than punishment. Force-enhanced mediation allows all parties to understand each other's perspectives and motivations, leading to solutions that address root causes rather than merely symptoms. A particularly notable case involves a dispute between the banking clan and several Outer Rim worlds over predatory lending practices. Under the old system, such conflicts typically resulted in years of litigation, enormous legal fees, and outcomes that satisfied no one. But when Force mediators facilitate direct empathic connection between banking clan executives and their victims, a very different resolution emerges. The executives, experiencing for the first time the desperation and suffering their policies had caused, voluntarily agree to debt forgiveness and reformed lending practices. More remarkably, they begin working with the affected worlds to develop more equitable economic relationships that benefit all parties. "I never understood," confesses San Hill, chairman of the banking clan. Numbers on financial reports cannot convey the reality of families losing their homes, children going hungry because of debt service. The Force has shown me that true prosperity comes from lifting others up, not exploiting their desperation. These successes in conflict resolution lead to the development of new diplomatic protocols that are adopted throughout the galaxy. The traditional approach of sending political representatives to negotiate agreements gives way to missions that include Force users trained in empathic mediation. When the Hutt cartel, one of the galaxy's most persistent criminal organizations, begins showing interest in legitimate business opportunities, a joint diplomatic mission is assembled. Rather than treating the Hutts as irredeemable criminals, the mission approaches them as beings capable of growth and change. Jabba the Hutt himself, notorious for his cruelty and exploitation, agrees to meet with the diplomatic team on his palace on Tatooine. The session that follows would have been unimaginable under previous galactic conditions. Using advanced Force techniques, the mediators allow Jabba to experience the fear and suffering of those he has enslaved and exploited. But they also show him alternative paths where his organizational skills and resources could serve legitimate purposes, bringing him respect and prosperity without requiring cruelty. The transformation is gradual, but genuine. Jabba begins releasing slaves and converting his criminal enterprises into legal businesses. His palace becomes a center for legitimate trade and cultural exchange rather than a den of vice and exploitation. Power through fear is limited. Jabba admits in his own language, his words translated for the galactic media. Power through cooperation has no limits. The Force has shown me this truth. Similar successes with other criminal organizations lead to a dramatic reduction in galactic crime rates. But more importantly, they demonstrate that even the most hardened criminals are capable of redemption when approached with the right combination of understanding, accountability, and opportunity for positive change. The educational implications of these developments prove equally transformative. Traditional schooling, which had focused on rote memorization and competitive achievement, evolves to incorporate Force awareness as a fundamental aspect of learning. Children throughout the galaxy begin learning not just facts and skills, but also empathy, emotional intelligence, and the ability to understand complex problems from multiple perspectives. Students who struggle with traditional academic subjects often excel when they can use Force-enhanced intuition to supplement analytical thinking. On Alderaan, Princess Leia helps develop educational programs that combine traditional academics with Force training for both sensitive and non-sensitive students. Even those who cannot actively manipulate the Force benefit enormously from learning to recognize its presence and understand its influence on galactic events. Every being in the galaxy is connected to the Force. Leia explains to a gathering of educators from across the Republic. Some can actively channel it, others can only observe its effects. But all can benefit from understanding its role in shaping our shared reality. These educational reforms produce a generation of young beings who are fundamentally different from their predecessors. They think systemically rather than individually. They consider emotional and spiritual factors alongside logical analysis, and they approach conflicts with the assumption that resolution is possible rather than victory is necessary. The long-term implications of these changes become apparent as the first generation of Force-aware beings reaches adulthood. Young adults who have been trained in empathy and cooperation prove remarkably effective at solving complex problems that had stymied previous generations. Climate change on industrial worlds, resource depletion in mining systems, and social inequality in urban centers all begin to show improvement as young problem solvers apply Force-enhanced insight to environmental and social challenges. On Coruscant, a team of recent graduates develops revolutionary approaches to urban planning that take into account not just physical infrastructure needs, but also the psychological and spiritual well-being of inhabitants. Their designs incorporate green spaces, community gathering areas, and meditation zones that dramatically improve quality of life in previously problematic districts. We learn to see cities as living systems rather than just collections of buildings, explains one young urban planner. When you understand how the Force flows through inhabited spaces, you can design environments that support both individual well-being and community harmony. The success of these approaches leads to their adoption throughout the galaxy. Even ancient worlds like Coruscant, with millennia of accumulated urban problems, begin to undergo transformation as Force-aware planning principles are applied to renovation and expansion projects. But perhaps the most significant long-term change involves the relationship between the galaxy and the broader universe. As Force understanding deepens and spreads, sensors and exploration missions begin detecting phenomena that had previously been invisible to galactic civilization. Advanced Force users, working with traditional scientists and explorers, discover that the galaxy itself is just one small part of a vast cosmic Force network that extends throughout the universe. Other galaxies, previously thought to be empty of intelligent life, reveal themselves to be home to entirely different forms of Force-sensitive civilizations. We're not alone, and we never have been, Anakin explains to a gathering of galactic leaders as he shares the results of these cosmic explorations. The Force connects not just beings within our galaxy, but entire galactic communities across the universe. We have so much more to learn, so much more to experience. These discoveries open up entirely new possibilities for galactic development and growth. Instead of being limited to the resources and knowledge available within their own galaxy, beings begin to contemplate exchange and cooperation with cosmic neighbors they had never imagined existed. But first, they must complete the work of healing their own galactic community. Despite remarkable progress, pockets of resistance to the new order remain scattered throughout known space. Some beings, too damaged by previous systems or too invested in old power structures, continue to fight against the changes sweeping the galaxy. A coalition of unreformed Sith Lords, led by an ancient being called Darth Krayt, who had survived in stasis since the days of the Old Republic, attempts to re-establish traditional Sith dominance. They reject Anakin's integrated approach as weakness and seek to return to the rule of two and its emphasis on power through hatred and conflict. The confrontation comes on Korriban, the ancient Sith homeworld, where Krayt and his followers have established a hidden fortress. Unlike previous conflicts, this battle is not fought with armies or massive fleets, but through direct force competition between opposing philosophies. Anakin, accompanied by representatives from all major Force traditions, faces Krayt and his adherents in what becomes known as the Last Darkness. The battle is fought not with lightsabers or Force powers, but through competing visions of what the galaxy could become. Krayt projects images of galactic order maintained through fear, strength, and the dominance of Force users over ordinary beings. His vision shows a universe where conflict drives evolution, where only the strong survive, and where peace is seen as stagnation that leads inevitably to decay and death. But Anakin and his allies counter with their own vision. A galaxy where strength serves protection rather than domination, where conflict is channeled into healthy competition and cooperative problem-solving, and where peace provides the foundation for unprecedented growth and exploration. The cosmic force itself seems to participate in this battle of visions, weighing the merits of each approach against the evidence of galactic history. The outcome becomes clear when Force-sensitive beings throughout the galaxy, regardless of their training or affiliation, spontaneously begin to support Anakin's vision through their own contributions to the galactic Force network. Faced with this overwhelming demonstration of cosmic preference for unity over division, even Krayt and his most devoted followers find themselves unable to maintain their opposition. The Last Darkness ends not with the destruction of the Sith holdouts, but with their integration into the larger community of Force users. Perhaps, Krayt admits as his ancient hatred finally dissolves, strength can serve purposes I had not imagined. Perhaps the strong can lift up the weak rather than consuming them. With this final resistance overcome, the galaxy enters an era of unprecedented peace and prosperity. The unified Force Covenant becomes the template for similar organizations in other galaxies, spreading techniques of empathy, balance, and cooperative problem-solving throughout the cosmic Force network. Anakin, now recognized not just as Grey Sovereign of his own galaxy but as an elder teacher for cosmic Force communities, reflects on the journey that brought them to this point. During a quiet moment in the rebuilt Jedi Temple, the prophecy spoke of bringing balance to the Force. He muses to Padme as they watch their children play with younglings from dozens of different species and Force traditions. But balance was never about destroying the dark side or perfecting the light. It was about integration, about wholeness, about recognizing that all aspects of existence have value when properly understood and applied. Luke and Leia, now teenagers, with remarkable Force abilities that combine the best insights of all traditions, represent the future of galactic civilization. They move effortlessly between different Force techniques, using Jedi compassion enhanced by Sith passion, Night Sister spiritual knowledge combined with Matukai physical discipline, and dozens of other integrated approaches. But more importantly, they and their generation take unity for granted in ways their parents never could. For them, cooperation between former enemies is natural. Empathic understanding is a basic life skill, and the idea of choosing between light and dark seems as primitive as using stone tools. They'll accomplish things we can barely imagine, Padme observes, watching Leia unconsciously mediate a minor disagreement between younger children while Luke demonstrates a new healing technique he's developed by combining insights from 5 different Force traditions. As the galactic community continues to grow and evolve, new challenges and opportunities emerge regularly, but they face these developments with confidence born from experience in turning problems into possibilities, enemies into allies, and division into unity. The ancient wound in the galaxy has indeed been healed, not through the victory of one side over another, but through the recognition that all aspects of the Force contribute to a larger truth. In choosing synthesis over separation, understanding over judgment, and service over domination, Anakin Skywalker has fulfilled his true destiny as the chosen one who brought balance to the Force and peace to the galaxy. The story of the Grey Sovereign becomes legend, inspiring beings throughout the cosmic Force network to seek their own paths of integration and balance. But for those who lived through the transformation, the most remarkable aspect is not the dramatic battles or mystical revelations, but the simple fact that former enemies have become friends, ancient hatred has become understanding, and the galaxy has finally learned to heal rather than harm. That's our theory. The Star Wars universe is a galaxy filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey to a galaxy far, far away, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.